What's going on, folks? This is Colion Noir, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Seeing Live on this beautiful Monday afternoon. And for a lot of people who follow me on my YouTube channel, they're pretty aware. If you've been following me for a while, you're pretty aware of the gun reviews that I tend to do on a less than regular basis now, but more regular before, and hopefully starting back up again. And anyone knows I'm really big on the custom Glock guns, essentially. I love the idea of starting with kind of a blank canvas of something that does something pretty well, and then fine-tuning and perfecting the minor imperfections that may be in that particular item. In any category that you can think of, whether it be clothes, cars, shoes, whatever the case, I love the kind of custom element that tends to arise at in a lot of marketplaces these days. And no less the case with, of course, the gun world. You have a lot of your powerhouses out there by the names of Salient, you have Zev, and then of course now you have Agency Arms as well doing their thing on the Glock platform. And I gotta say, from an aesthetic standpoint, I absolutely love what those guys over there are doing, and I'm really happy to have Michael Parks from Agency Arms joining me now. What's going on, Michael?
Not much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, man. So let's just jump right into this, man. So you guys have something special that you guys released last week, which by the name of the NOC Pistol,
Yes.
which kind of is contrary to what you guys do, essentially, because what you typically do is modify Glocks, but you guys decided to jump in and build your own gun from the ground up. So kind of talk to me about that.
Well, so basically, it really at its heart, still Glock. Still uses Glock internals and OEM components and all that. But it kind of comes from a concept that's been around since I think the 80s. So what we wanted to do was kind of bring that to the Glock market. Mm-hmm. So AccuLock is a company that I think they got a patent back in '88, if I'm not mistaken. And the guy's name is Travis Stahan. Basically, on 1911s, put a dovetailed sight onto his compensator of his 1911s. And so it's been around for a long time, and just no one's ever done it to a Glock. So we wanted to bring it to market, and in all honesty, we would have loved to have done it on a Glock, but can't use an OEM slide because we had to change the internal dimensions and the outer dimensions of the front end. And
so what slide are you using?
So we're using an actual blank that's being manufactured from 416 stainless.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
It's a blank. Yeah, it's very similar, but a lot of the inner dimensions of the front area and the outer dimensions had to be changed to match up perfectly with the compensator.
Okay.
And so the comps made of the same material as well.
So why? So for somebody who's new in the firearms and just kind of getting started, and they come across the NOC, why a compensated gun? Like, why build a gun from the ground up based around the idea of a compensated gun?
They're a lot of fun. I mean, Colion Special has become like a really big underground movement where a lot of people are like, it's obviously made a splash in the special forces community, and it makes shooting the gun a lot more fun. You can put a lot hotter load through it, and it eats that recoil. So we kind of, saw that trend buzzing, and that's why we said, hey, we could do this, but also put a whole lot of agency into this and take it one step further. And so that's why we want to do the sight tracker, and we got a patent pending on that. And it just kind of started evolving into this huge thing where, the sight tracker is what times it into this. The guide run doesn't really have any effect, and it just became really fun to shoot. And so that's where the project really came from. So here we are.
I'm a huge fan of compensating guns myself. I just recently, like I told you not too long ago, I picked up a 17C and a 19C as well. I know there's a lot of controversy out there in the gun world when it comes to compensated guns. The whole idea of, you're going to burn your eyebrows off and you're going to kill your night vision and all of those things. And then you also have the people who are like, it's a 9. Why do you need to compensate for a 9? It doesn't recoil as is. So what do you have to say to those people who come across a NOC and they're like, we don't need a compensated gun?
Yeah, it's I get the same thing. I'm a full-time cop too, so my range master gives me crap about it, and he calls old ninja stuff is his favorite line, or it's my And really, what it comes down to is, like, for instance, 147 plus B plus is what I carry on duty, and it's super snappy. It's a great defensive round, but it's almost like shooting 40. So when you incorporate a compensator, it is almost like you're shooting 115 ball. So it makes the gun much more manageable. And then if you're worried about that flash, it's going to throw out a fireball. But I mean, at least for all the guns I carry with a weapon light on everything. And so the flash is kind of mitigated at that point since I'm going to be using my light.
Now, now you mentioned you actually is that the gun you carry?
Yeah, off duty.
Off duty. Okay, so what gun do you carry on duty?
A 17.
Okay. So now,
There are restrictions on that.
gotcha. So so for somebody wondering, what are the purposes behind the NOC? Like, is it a range gun? Is it a carry gun? Is it a gamer gun? Where would you put that in the box of purpose?
We put it as a duty gun, really, and we build everything under the premise that it has to be able to something you can throw in a holster and protect yourself with. So the NOC, yeah, it's a great gun to shoot and have fun with. However, it's built with the same mentality as all of our products. So once you get through the 500 round break-in period, it's very reliable. It eats everything, and we send it off with 2 springs. So if you're running those hotter loads, we put an 18-pound recoil spring. Or if you're running stuff just to plink and have fun, you run the 15-pound spring for those 115 rounds and stuff like that.
I want to go back to the what you mentioned about the break-in period, because I think a lot of people either underestimate that, don't factor it in, or don't know anything about a break-in period. Kind of explain why you would need a break-in period for a particular gun.
So these aren't built like a traditional Glock. A lot of Glocks are built with a lot of tolerance. The second you start putting in like a match grade barrel, for instance, like these ones have. Now these are based off of S3F barrels that we manufacture the post machining on to make it our edition. So it comes to us as a blank. Well, when you're putting this comp on with a sight tracker, what you're basically doing is now taking a lot of that slop out. And since it's both made out of 416 stainless, all 3 components, they're squeezing the slide. So you have to literally let them fire in and start working them going in and get them all driving with each other, because the metal does move. Yeah. And like when you put your hood on your barrel and you'll see it starts to kind of come down a little bit at the front, it's basically molding to each other and starting to fit like a glove. So when they're super, super tight when you get them at the beginning, you have to let them break in. You'll get a little bit of failures to go back into batteries and stuff like that. And that's what the break-in period is really for, especially on these pistols, is they have to start getting those tolerances loosened up a little bit.
So is it kind of almost like they're almost like all the components and parts are kind of creating their own timing that work in unison together? So almost kind of like in many ways like a lot of 1911s. Yes. Is that fair enough? Okay. So for somebody wondering why you would build a gun like that, what are the advantages of building a gun with such tight tolerances?
So that's the whole thing. You can get a lot more accuracy out of the gun. It's built a lot better. For instance, I'm not saying anything about a Glock not being built well. They're built great, phenomenal pistols. I mean, that's why we work on it. They're great pistols. But when you start throwing those tolerances into it, you can make a gun that's extremely accurate. It feels much smoother. For instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar. I'm sure you are with an Infinity.
Yeah, absolutely.
You grab those guns, you start racking that slide, and it screams that you've dropped a small fortune on a pistol.
Pretty much.
And, you definitely get that sense that you got your money's worth. And so the way that we did this with this precision machining, and my business partner using his genius brain, his name's Randy, you definitely pull this out of that nano case and you feel the quality that goes into it and the workmanship that goes into it. So the tolerances just give you those types of feel, as well as the bang for your buck is the accuracy at the end and how it performs.
Gotcha. No, and I gotta agree with you. I've definitely dealt with my fair share of Infinity pistols, and it's amazing how something as small as tight tolerances can translate into such a more quality experience when you're shooting a firearm. And I think a lot of people especially people who aren't too familiar with custom Glocks, haven't shot a custom Glock, haven't handled them or dealt with them, for them it kind of just seems a wash, kind of like it's just kind of snake oil gimmicky stuff. But there's a difference. There's a difference in the way the gun tracks, a difference in the way the gun feels, shoots, recoils, all of it. And so I definitely would have to agree with you in that regard. So let's talk really quickly about price before we go to break, because I know that's going to be one of the bigger contentions that a lot of people have when it comes to the NOC, essentially. Somebody who comes in and sees the NOC, and I always like to put things through the eye of the new shooter. And the reason why is because, for guys like you and I who've kind of been doing this for some time, we tend to underestimate certain aspects of stuff that we do know, that a lot of people don't know, and our perspectives tend to switch and change and things of that nature. But how would you justify, if they were to ask you, tell me why, if I'm on the edge and I'm a new shooter and I'm looking at this gun and I like it, but I'm like, this cost, how would you justify that? And I'm going to make this question even worse by making you think about it and then answering it when we come back from break.
Sounds good.
All right.